Welcome everyone, I'm Jean-Claude at Beyond Mystic, and this is a really cool episode about astrology, and we're going to focus on the total solar eclipse that's coming up at the summer solstice. And with me today is a good friend of mine, Sonja Francis. You can meet and you can find Sonja Francis at AstrologerCoach.com. Sonja, how are you today?
I'm great. How are you, Jean-Claude?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. Thank you for asking. I know the energies are all over the map, and I think a lot of people on the show today are going to be feeling it, or they have been feeling it already. So I think that the conversation we're going to have now about the eclipses
Going to be very timely.
Right. Very timely, and it'll be very helpful to people to understand what really is going on. So for the folks on YouTube, we're live, of course, and we want to interact with you in the chat. So we are going to be taking questions, but Sonja would like to take questions related to general astrology, maybe mapping the next couple of months, as opposed to the personal stuff with the dates and the times. We won't have time to do that on this podcast. But of course, if you guys have specific questions in terms of alignments and what's going on, we're going to be happy to field them as we go during the show. So I'll monitor the chat, Sonja, and if I see anything really interesting, I'll bring it up to the screen so we can discuss it. Yeah. So again, everyone, thank you for joining us. This is going to be a cool interactive astrology reading, and really excited to have Sonja every time she's on. And she's just amazing the way she communicates, and she's down to earth. And Sonja, the last video we had so many great comments about how joyful it was to listen to you, and how you had that clarity of perception, and how you really communicated your points. I had a lot of great comments, so I wanted to relay those to you.
You're welcome. To hear that. I hope we can do the same today, since the energies are very different today than they were last time when we spoke.
Yes, of course. And of course, the last time we spoke, this whole thing was breaking out in the world, and so people were very nervous about that. There was a lot of anxiety going on, and just as we were finishing, I was telling you that, man, something has to give, something has to change. Of course, now something did change. We've got a whole new narrative and a whole new situation of unrest going on, and that's very stressful for a lot of people right now. And our hearts go out to anyone who's been hurt by these incidents and the fires and all that stuff. And we really want to, I guess, bring a voice of calm to this whole situation, because it is about going in. We have to really figure out that this is a spiritual war, and that we need to know who the enemy is. And so I think right now it seems that they want us to fight each other, and of course that's probably not what we need to be doing right now. We need to be going within and getting those deep understandings. And hopefully with the discussion today and with the astrology chart, we'll have some better understanding and maybe some tools here to move forward in that respect. Yeah. So, Sonja, do you want to do a recap maybe of where we were at the last show, or from the last reading, to just set the table for what we're jumping into now? Because of course we're into eclipse season. We're going to be hit right, left, and center here.
So much has happened, I would say, because whenever you enter eclipse season, there's so much energy that comes through, because we're all receiving consciousness upgrades. And this particular eclipse season is a little bit longer than the last eclipse season 6 months ago. Eclipses happen every 6 months. And so eclipse cycles last for those 6 months when the eclipse happens. And each eclipse season is sort of like, depending on how many eclipses are happening in a row, we sort of like get to see how long are we on this ride of upgrading and tuning in, and on this, it's like an evolutionary journey that we're on, basically, right? And a lot can happen during eclipse season. A lot of new beginnings can happen. A lot of endings can happen. A lot of things that have to move to the next level of some sort have to happen. Eclipses have 19-year cycles. So every 19 years, an eclipse happens in the same degree and the same sign, which indicates that, we're sort of like either revisiting something that happened 19 years ago, or we're moving something to the next level that happened 19 years ago. or we're ending a phase and we're beginning a new phase, right? In terms of those 19 years. So there's a lot to consider with eclipses, right? There's a lot of energy that's moving through. And of course, this eclipse in particular, you know, there's a lot of shifts that are happening at the same time as the eclipses are happening, because we had the moon nodes shifted into new signs in May. And so this eclipse season is starting a new eclipse cycle, in a sense, with new signs in them, which is connected to the Sagittarian Gemini polarity. And so that's new. And so we're kind of adapting to that. Sagittarius has to do with belief systems and everything that we have to look at and revisit in regards to what we believe to be true about life, about ourselves, about this planet where we're living currently, about our life perspectives. And so we need to really take a look at that and become very conscious how we're moving with our belief systems. Like, are we attached? Are we capable of being adaptable? Are we capable of expanding our point of views? Are we capable of seeing things from a bigger perspective? Or are we getting you know, too dogmatic about certain point of views? Are we getting too, you know, attached and held into a past, into sort of like a past conditioning, right? So that's new, right? That sort of perspective is new. And then the other thing that's also happening with this eclipse that's coming now, which is happening on June 21st. So we're right in the midst of that energy spurt of that eclipse. That eclipse has 3 planets stationing and changing directions with this eclipse. And that's huge, because that doesn't happen all the time. And 3 planets stationing means that these 3 planets are exalted, which means we're needing to connect to the energies of these 3 planets in a more conscious way. And there's something in our face that we're being confronted with. And at the same time as an eclipse taking place, which is by itself already a lot to deal with, right? So we're really talking about, there's a lot of energy that feels kind of overwhelming, right? I mean, I've been, personally, I've been feeling quite overwhelmed with everything that's been coming through. I imagine that a lot of people feel overwhelmed right now. And the planets in question that are stationing and changing directions are Mercury, which is going retrograde on the 18th in Mercury in Cancer. So there's a lot of emotion that we're connecting with in terms of like, what am I feeling? Am I feeling safe? Am I feeling taken care of? What are my needs? How do I take care of my needs? How can I, you know, feel safe in my current situation that's occurring? So all these questions are coming up for us, right? Then the other thing, the other planet that's changing directions is Venus in Gemini, which has been retrograde for, I think, 6 weeks now, and will be going direct on June 25th, if that's correct. Let me just double check that date. Yeah, on the 25th. So that's happening right after the eclipse happens. So because that planet is exalted, there is this sense about relationships. It's about values. It's about what am I relating to? What are my values? Like, what do I want to communicate? How do I want to communicate with other people? Am I communicating correctly? Am I communicating in a way that supports my values, that supports my relationships, right? So all of that is sort of coming up and is in our faces. And we've had about, 6 weeks to think about our relationships, to think about our values, right? So there's been a lot of inner work around that as well, right? Then the third planet, pardon me, that's going retrograde as well is Neptune. Neptune is exalted. So with Neptune being exalted, we feel this sense of like needing to go inward. It's a very spiritual energy. Neptune has to do with our connection to source, our connection to our higher self, our connection to God, to the universe, right? To the energies all around us. It's about, connecting to our heart center, to our essence, who we truly are without all the conditioning, without all the mind chatter. Who are you at your essence? And when that planet gets louder, we're getting to be confronted with how are we connected to that higher place? How are we connected to that heart space? Are we connected? Are we capable of coming from the heart? Are we capable of connecting from a place of love? Or are we freaking out? Are we getting anxious? Are we getting disconnected? Are we feeling separate from everything and everybody? Are we feeling anxious because we feel like it's too much, it's too overwhelming? We need to escape. We need to get out, right? Like, are people trying to check out right now, or are they trying to connect more deeply with their own heart? So these are all issues. And as you can hear from what I'm saying here, there's so many issues, right? There's so many energies that we're being confronted with and that we're being asked to connect with right now. And then not also to speak about, that Mars energy that's been in the background, where we've been feeling this intensity around healing, needing to heal our inner masculine, needing to heal our anger issues, needing to heal our past or our ancestry's past around anger, around masculinity, around, violence, around domination, around things like that, right? Where we're being invited to take a look at that and bring forgiveness, or bring a sense of love to that, bring a sense of kindness to that within each one of us, and also out there in the world with what's happening, right? To give that to each other. And it's not easy. None of this is easy. None of this is easy. And this is why, we see so many colors right now. There's so much coming out in so many people, because none of this is easy. And for those of us who don't have the tools, who don't have the ability to trust our own journey, to trust our higher self, to trust our own heart, this is going to be very difficult right now. This is something where people will start to be very confronted, with who they are and how they're showing up in the world, and how other people show up in the world, also being confronted with other people's behavior, because ultimately that's a sort of like a mirror effect as well, right? Like what we see out there in the world is a mirror of what we're holding on to, or what we're not able to where we're not able to give love or compassion or forgiveness to right now.
Right. For everyone in the chat, if you're hearing us properly, can you give us a 5x5? I had mic issues on the last live stream that we couldn't figure out because of my internet connection. So if you guys hear us okay, please let us know in the chat room. And also, because they're still working on that tower from where I connect, it's possible that I get bumped off during this live stream here. So Sonja, just keep going with it, because the live stream will continue even though I get
even if you get bumped off.
Yeah, so I'll just go reboot the router. It'll take me a minute or two, and I'll pop back in. But I forgot to tell you that before the show, so okay. Just in case.
Good to know. Good to know.
Okay, so thank you again, everyone in the chat room, for providing some questions and comments. We're going to try to do this interactive today, and while we set up some questions here, maybe what I wanted to ask Sonja was, of course, we've had a hell of a year since the beginning of all this. Yes. And with the solstice and also with the eclipse here, there's an opportunity to start fresh, right? And how do we tap into that? Like, is there a specific an appropriate time to start planning? Do we do the meditation on the day of? Like, how do we use the orbits here to our advantage?
That's a great question. Thanks, Jean-Claude, for that. Yes. So because there's a solstice right before the eclipse, that makes the eclipse even more powerful, because the eclipse will happen at 0 degrees of Cancer, which is an exalted degree. And that usually has a lot to do with fresh beginnings. Now, with an eclipse, because the energies are so strong within 48 hours of the eclipse, so before and after the eclipse becomes exact, 48 hours before and 48 after, we want to be in a state of calm as much as possible. We want to just be meditating. Don't do anything too drastic around that time, right? Don't try to jump the gun. Don't try to, set intentions yet. Just stay in a very nurturing place with yourself. Connect to nature, meditate, lay low, rest a lot. Do what feels nurturing and good to you. After the 48 hours after the eclipse becomes exact, so that would be on Tuesday, the 23rd of June. I would say the best bet would be after 8:33 a.m. East Coast time, US East Coast time, is the best time to set some powerful intentions. So if you have been meditating, or if you have been resting a lot, and tuned into the energies, just let yourself be guided by that sensing and feeling, and then set some intentions around the Cancer energy. So Cancer has to do with our home. It has to do with feeling safe. It has to do with family. It has to do with nurturing and feeling nurtured, giving and receiving on an emotional level. It has to do with the familiar and with the past. And so we're kind of being invited to, I think the invitation here is very strongly to start fresh in terms of how we've been connecting to our feeling body, how we've been nurturing ourselves and tuning in with ourselves, with our own feelings and with our own needs. Mm-hmm. It's also important to start fresh around, like how we've been giving away our power to other people in the past, right? Yeah. And this is a big one because for generations and generations now, we have not really owned our own power as individuals. We've been very keen on letting other people guide us, letting politicians tell us, what's right and what's wrong, or what the rules are and what needs to happen, what doesn't need to happen, right? But on an individual level, it's so important for us to start learning how to trust ourselves, how to trust our own power and our own sensing, our own knowing, because we are so powerful as individuals. And if we can't acknowledge that, and if we can't trust that, we are going to continue to give our power away to other people. We're going to continue to blame other people for our not feeling okay. When really our not feeling okay, whenever that comes up, that is something we need to hold as a way of like, okay, I'm not feeling okay right now, but I can do something about this for myself. I can make a difference. I can change what I'm not feeling good about. Right. And to take back to kind of take back our, not just our power, but also the reins, like to take back the steering wheel, but without trying to control others, right? Because taking back the steering wheel is really much more about doing that for me. It's all about, learning how to take care of this particular body mind. It's not about trying to control other body minds. They're here to do the same. Everybody's here to do the same. Everybody's here to take care of themselves, to nurture themselves, to create, to be powerful in the world, to do whatever we can do to make a difference for ourselves and for others. But everybody has to do that in their own way and in their own time. We cannot control what another person can or cannot do. So really being focused on ourselves, and I think I mentioned this already in our last conversation, that this is so important. But this is just something that remains for the next 6 months. This is really our focus, because we have another eclipse coming up in 2 weeks after the solar eclipse. That is a lunar eclipse in Capricorn that that invites us to balance out this ability to be self-responsible and take care of ourselves at the same time, right? And that's really what we're here to. We're here to complete a cycle that started in 2018. You know, around self-responsibility, around self-care, around, you know, feeling more empowered out there in the world without needing to use that power against each other. It's for each other. It's not against each other, right? But obviously everybody has to walk this journey by themselves in a way that works for each one of us. So focus on yourself, you know, really the best you can do for yourself and for this world at this moment in time is to focus on yourself and what you can do. Don't focus on what other people are doing. It's not relevant.
Okay, so I have a question for you in that light, and I love this flow that we're having. So going back to what you were talking about, the solar eclipse, the 48 hours before and after.
Yes.
Let's say there's people in the chat right now, and they're thinking about, I've got this fear of, you know, whatever it is, and I've been having a lot of trouble getting rid of this fear, or I have this procrastination about a certain topic or a certain job I'm supposed to do, or how do we use, or how does that person use the eclipse to burn that off? Is there a technique, and again, a timing, a window that is more in French?
So I would say up until the eclipse becomes exact, it's a great time for us to be just acknowledging all of our fears and anxieties and allowing ourselves to be as kind and compassionate with all of that, and to just allow it to flow, allow it to just wash over you, you know, acknowledge it, but don't hold on to it, right? Because when we acknowledge something, doesn't mean we have to keep looking at it and we have to keep, you know, going like, what do I do with this? You don't have to do that. Acknowledge it and give it over to the eclipse, you know. If the eclipse is something that holds power for you in your mind's eye, then give it over to the eclipse and let the eclipse burn it down. You know, let the eclipse's energy take all of that fear and take all of the concerns that you have and let that burn out through the eclipse.
Very good.
Yes,
go
sorry.
ahead. Go ahead. I didn't want to interrupt.
I was just going to say, once we have those 48 hours that after the eclipse where we can start setting intentions, at that point, then get really clear about how you want to move forward. Now that you've used the energy of the eclipse to let all that burn out, what's next? What are you going to do now? But don't start going there until 48 hours after the eclipse. Let yourself really be with the energies. Let yourself be with letting all of that move through you and let it go out of you. You know, and be kind, because the key word here is kindness and compassion, because if you are not kind to yourself, you're going to keep holding on to the issues or the problems that you think that you have.
Right. What if I have a specific project that I've been working on for months? It's ready, it's on the shelf, it's ready to go, and I'm looking for the best possible date to launch it. Do I do that on the eclipse? Like, let's say I had a book and I wanted to post it online. I have a PDF or a new website idea or a new business idea. What would be the perfect alignment to use that fresh energy of the new to catapult it forward? Like,
that's a very good question. It's a little tricky with eclipses because, so it depends on what it is, right? If it's something that you've been working on for a while already, and this is really just a matter of you getting it out, right? Like the example of the book, for example. Right. Let's say you've been writing it for a year already or for 2 years, and now you're just ready to get it out into the stream. I would say anytime after the eclipse. Anytime after, like, I would maybe give it the 48 hours, right? Okay. Because the energy is so strong. So okay. I would give it the 48 hours and then push it out. If it's something, I would always make sure, of course, that there's not a moon void, of course. When you begin something new, that's essential. And I would invite you to maybe check in with my weekly forecasts. I always talk about the moon void, of course, phases for each week, so you can see when that happens. It's also all over the internet if you want to just go anywhere on the internet and just ask for moon void, of course, phases, right? I would avoid those. And then also we have, with this eclipse, and this is why this is a tricky answer, with this eclipse we have a lot of planets shifting direction, right? Like I mentioned already, we have Mercury, Venus, and Neptune. So depending on what this new project is, if it's connected to something that has to do with Mercury, like writing a book and sharing a book, right, would be connected to Mercury. We do have a Mercury retrograde starting a couple of days before the eclipse. So it might be a good idea to maybe wait with something like a book launch until after Mercury is no longer retrograde, right? But then you also have to look in your own chart. Do you have a Mercury retrograde in your own chart? Or is your Mercury not retrograde in your own birth chart? That makes a difference too, right? Because if your natal Mercury is retrograde, it's a great time for you to launch things during a Mercury retrograde. If it's not retrograde in your natal chart, then don't launch it during a Mercury retrograde. So there's layers, right? With astrology, sometimes the answers are not super simple, and I apologize for that. But there's something to kind of keep in mind, that it has a lot to do with your birth chart as well. And these planetary shifts as well, Venus will go direct on the 25th. So if you have anything that you want a brand new start that's connected to Venus in some way, connected to relationships, that's connected to something beautiful or to something artful or to something connected with finances or money, I would say wait until Venus goes direct on the 25th, right, to start that. So there are many answers to that question, so to speak.
Well, very good. And for the folks out there, this is why we said, we'll take questions, but some of them can be difficult here. So I put in the ticker tape for you down at the bottom of the screen here, that you can book a session directly with Sonja at AstrologerCoach.com. And as soon as the live stream is over too, I'll put all her details in the description box of this video so that you can connect with her and get those exact answers for you that make reference to your own astrology. Okay, last question before I get into the chat.
Yes.
What if I have a gift for someone and I want to empower that gift? And again, I guess that person has their own astrology, but is there something specific here, either with the solstice or maybe with the eclipse, that would be a good timing just to give more energy to a gift? And the gift is encouragement, is love, it's a recognition of past accomplishment. And I just want to focus that. What would be a good time for that?
Well, I would say a gift is any time, really. Give a gift whenever you can,
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, in terms of the energy, I would say, yeah, the solstice is a great time to give gifts. The eclipse itself as well, because a gift is something that comes from the heart, right? So the heart energy is never something that needs to be restrained or that needs to be held back. So I would say always give from the heart. Whenever something comes from the heart, let it flow, let it be, let it go, share. And that's, I don't think there's ever a bad timing for that. Not even a moon void, of course.
Okay, that's interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Dave Bronin here says a state of calm is a great plan right now. Yes, we all need to be calm and we all need to go within. Thanks, Dave, for sharing that. Okay, so I have a few questions here. Is there anything else that you wanted to touch upon as we were talking that you're guided to maybe put out there before we get into the questions, or do we want to start feeling those now?
I would say let's start with the questions, and if something comes to mind, I will add to that.
Okay. GSS1123 says, I've heard of fasting is good during an eclipse. Do you agree with this, the fasting part?
Oh, that's a great question. Honestly, I have never contemplated that before, but I could see that would be a good thing, because it's a period of, purification and letting go. And so, yeah, fasting could be very healthy during the eclipse. Yes, thanks for bringing that up.
Very good. Barbara says, please talk about earth changes. Thank you. Now, with the eclipse, of course,
Yes.
what do you see, or have you felt anything personally? Because I know you're very psychic as well, so it's not just the cards for you. You have all this intuition. What do you see on that front coming up, Sonja?
Well, here's what I would say. The next 7 years, we're definitely going to go through a lot of Earth changes, mainly because we've got Uranus in Taurus right now. And of course, eclipses are Uranian in nature. So eclipses will sometimes give us this sense of like shifts are happening. If the eclipse is connected to Uranus in particular, then these shifts can be even greater. This particular eclipse doesn't really have a challenging aspect to Uranus and Taurus. It's actually more of a sextile between Uranus and Mercury, I would say. So there's an opportunity with this eclipse for us to actually connect more fully to the Earth and to have more of a better understanding of what it is that we need on a physical level. And because remember, the Earth is a physical external manifestation of, or I should say maybe our own physical bodies are a manifestation or a physical manifestation of the Earth's physical body, right? That there's a connection between our physicality and the Earth's physicality, because we cannot survive without the Earth, right? I mean, it's a codependency in a sense, right? Because we're interconnected. We need the resources that the Earth can give us in order to flourish and in order to grow and in order to be healthy. And so that is something that we're getting in touch with, I think, with this eclipse. We're getting in touch with this sense of connectivity between our physical bodies and the Earth's body, right? But in general, I would say over the next 7 years, because Uranus is in Taurus, it will give us this sense of we're needing to learn how to shift our relationship to the planet. Because if we don't do that, the planet will reject us at some point, because in the end, the planet is more powerful than we little humans, on it. We seem to think as human beings, we have this notion that we can just do whatever we please on this planet and that we can just go around and destroy, everything around us or use the resources to an extent where we exploit the Earth, right? Yeah. But of course, I think with Uranus and Taurus, we have to recognize that that's not really an option any longer. We have to recognize that the Earth will, because the Earth is always about its own survival, right? The Earth will do whatever it needs to do to survive and whatever it needs to do to bring its own ecosystem into balance, right? So if there is an imbalance and if there is a destructive force that's occurring, the Earth will let us know. And so there will definitely be shifts, Earth shifts, because and I think we've already been experiencing that. I mean, this is not completely new, right? We've already been seeing, tsunamis and, shifts in the atmosphere. And I mean, I think what this quarantine thing has really taught us also is that, we've also been awakened to the fact that just by us staying home and not destroying the Earth, right, so to speak, but not adding to the destruction of the Earth, all of a sudden the Earth has time to recover. The Earth has time to breathe. And all of a sudden we see all this pollution go away in like split seconds, in no time, right? And this shows us, I mean, this needs to tell us something, right? It's like, hey, we can, within a 3-week period, we can change things around if we choose to do so. Yeah. Within a 3-week period. That's nothing.
I don't know if I dreamt this or if I actually saw this in the news a couple of weeks ago, but there were dolphins swimming in the Venice canals because they were all clean again. So it's just amazing how, yeah.
And this has only been 3 months, right?
Exactly.
3 months of people not destroying the planet, right? So it's just, it has to click somewhere inside of us that this is something that we need to really pay attention to.
Yeah.
You know, we have the power to connect to our planet in a way that we can, you know, live in harmony with all of us, each of us, you know.
Yes, and that's a good message for everyone to really focus on. And of course, that's something that I try to teach my kids here. That's all I can do here, and do my best personally. And I think if everybody does their own, then suddenly, you know, the problems get fixed. If you're waiting for somebody else on the outside, like you said earlier, the nanny state, who, you know, nothing ever gets fixed. So that's a good point, Sonja. I've got 2 questions here related to the president. I'm not sure how we want to address them. So astrology-wise, are there signs or alignments that would be either good for the president or bad for the president? So here there's 2 questions, and I'll put both up for you to know. So here, the gentleman or the person is asking, is Trump in danger? Because we've heard in the last couple of days that, you know, maybe some of the swamp creatures are feeling a little bit cornered, and they might try to, you know, do an attempt on him or something,
right,
a la JFK. And then the other one was, is Trump going to be reelected? So I don't know how you want to couch that or touch that, but let's look at these 2 questions for now.
Right. I mean, obviously these are big questions, and a lot of people want to know the answers to that. And obviously I would like to have the answer to that too. I mean, I don't know that astrology can answer those questions directly, but what I will say is that energetically speaking, we are moving into a big shift at the end of the year. And of course, the election is at the end of the year. So I think that, see, President Trump was born during a lunar eclipse. And he was born during a lunar eclipse where the eclipse was in Sagittarius Gemini, which is where the moon nodes are currently, and which is where the eclipse just happened 2 weeks ago. So yes, there are some possibilities that there are going to be big shifts for him in his personal life, in his public life, that might be happening because of the eclipses impacting him directly. Whether that means that he is going to be unwell, whether that means that he's going to be taken out, whether that means that he's going to be reelected, I don't know. Okay. But I do know that he's definitely in for a ride this next couple of years until 2021. He will be in for a big ride. I mean, he's not super young anymore, right? And I'm not sure about this, but he looks to me like he's not very healthy either, you know? Like, just looking at him, he's very red all the time, and just doesn't look like he has a very healthy diet or anything like that. So, I mean, who knows, right? But all I can say is that the eclipses that are happening over the next couple of years will definitely be impacting him in a great deal. So he's either going to need to make great shifts in how he relates to himself and the public, or he's going to have to make great shifts in, you know, how he manages his own energy. And the thing with a president is this. It's very easy for us to focus on the leadership that we currently have, whether that's, you know, in the US or whether that's in Europe or whether that's in Canada. You know, I mean, it's easy to focus on the people that are publicly talking about, you know, what's what and who are making the rules, right? Or not making the rules. But the thing is, what we really want to focus on is, like, how do I respond to that leadership? What's the responsibility that I'm taking around what I'm experiencing from the leadership that's presented to me? And how do I want to roll with that, or how do I want to move with that? Because that is really the essential question. What happens to Trump, whether he gets reelected or not, is not really a good question, right? Because whether that happens or not, we don't have control over that. Yeah. But what we do have control over is, how do I respond to this leadership? What does it tell me about me? What does it tell me about how I want to move forward with what I'm doing in my life? Because that's what we have control over. That's what we have influence over. So whenever people talk to me about Trump, the one thing I always say, give it as little energy as possible if you don't want him to be reelected. Don't watch him. Don't give him any energy. Especially don't give him any negative energy. Let it be completely neutral, and let it be completely like it doesn't matter. Because that is when you're actually removing the energy from him and you're giving it back to yourself. You want to give the energy back to yourself. You don't want to give energy to a leader that you don't want to have lead the country. Now, if you do want him to lead the country and you're a person that thinks he's doing a great job, then, by all means, give him energy. But then you also have to ask yourself, what is it about him that you love, that you want to give energy to? And can you maybe give yourself that energy as well? So it always comes back to give yourself the energy. Don't give it to somebody else. Yeah. Absolutely. The energy is best used right here, not out there in the world.
Yeah, I so agree. And, I did a career in politics before this. And so for me, on this channel, I don't want to get into politics. I've been there, done that, right? But I did a meditation. I had Joe on a couple of days ago, and, he had heard that, there was maybe some problems brewing for Trump, and he wanted to just do a meditation for his safety. I'm like, yeah, I'm okay with that. I mean, I don't want to encourage anybody taking, violence into their own hands and stuff like that. So we did a meditation, but a lot of people got triggered by that. I'm like, how can you be triggered by just having a meditation so that everybody's safe and healthy? I mean, that was the point of all of it, because at the end of the day, it is a spiritual war, and that's where we're coming from. And so I love your message there too, Sonja, about going within and taking back your own energy here. Because
take it back and give it to yourself, Yeah.
So Sandra here has a question. I'm not sure what she means by that. Do you know this last word? So she says, what do you think?
I do know what she means by this.
Okay. Yeah. Went over my head, but I'm like, I'll bring it up anyways. Go ahead.
Yes. Thanks for asking that question. So Sandra, the 13th sign is something that has more to do with star constellations, right? The kind of astrology that I engage in and that I teach and work with is the Western tropical astrology, and the star constellations are more connected to sidereal astrology, which has to do, which is more of an older branch of astrology. It's more connected to Eastern astrology, and it's based on a model that was created 3,000 years ago, when the Earth was in a particular alignment with the sky, and the way the star system was created, or the way it showed up, the Earth was still in alignment with the star constellations. So, wherever you saw Taurus was Taurus, wherever you saw, Aries was Aries. Well, the Earth has shifted since that time. So in those 3,000 years, the Earth has slightly shifted on its axis. So the way we view the constellations from the place of the Earth currently is no longer the same as it was 3,000 years ago. So Western tropical astrology is not based on the star constellations anymore. Whereas a sidereal Eastern astrology is still based on that star constellation. So there is a difference in systems and in how certain people view astrology. So there's that. And then the 13th sign shows up in the sky as a star constellation between Scorpio and Sagittarius. And it is archetypically, it is seen as the healer and the doctor, or the person that is capable of transforming things on a emotional and on a spiritual level. That's how I interpret that 13th sign. Because it's connected to the star constellations, I don't really use that particular sign in tropical Western astrology, so it's not something that I work with. But I hope my explanation helped in understanding this a little bit better, what this is about, because this does come up quite a bit for people, because they read about it, they see it somewhere, and then they're like, oh my God, what's this? There's a new sign, you know. Gotcha. So just wanted to address that.
That was a good question. Thank you. Thank
Great
you, Sonja.
question, yes.
Yeah. Solar eclipses are for positive energies and coming together, right? What do you think about that statement?
Well, eclipses, I wouldn't necessarily say positive or negative, only because those are judgments. Because positive is something different for every single person, right? Or negative is something different for every single person. I would say solar eclipses are about evolution. They're about bringing us to that next level on our soul's journey. And it gives us an opportunity to grow. It gives us an opportunity to do things differently, or to be more awake or more aware of how we want to be doing things.
Okay. Green Heart. Yeah, that's good. Thank you, Sonja. Green Heart has basically a beautiful comment here, so I thought I'd put it up. It wasn't a question, but thank you, Green Heart, for that. Yeah, love and grace to everyone. Thank you so much. Okay. Ellie, okay. We have eclipse almost daily now. Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of eclipses going on here, so maybe touch on that a little bit. Yeah, so she's talking about the solar shield is eclipsed. And is it supposed to be backlit? So I brought up the picture earlier, and I think let me bring it back up here to see if that's exactly what we're going to see. I know is it going to be total here in North America for us to see that, Sonja?
You know, I don't know where it's visible from. I didn't look that up. I apologize.
No problem.
But it's usually not visible from everywhere, right? Like, even though we can't always see it from everywhere, it can still be felt. So even if this is something you can only see in Asia and Europe, for example, you will still feel the eclipse in the United States and in Canada as well, right? Because just the visual doesn't mean that that's the only reason why we can feel it, right? I mean, sometimes as human beings, we need to see things in order to believe things, right? But in astrology, it's very clear that you don't have to see it in order to feel it, and in order for it to have the energetic impact on you that it will have, right?
Okay. Dave has a great question. What initially got you, Sonja, into astrology? I think I asked you this in the first interview, but for people who are here, yeah. And what got you inspired to study this?
Well, to be honest, I've always been a deep thinker. I've always been into wanting to understand the whys of the world, you know, like, why am I here? Like, why am I in this body? Like, why are people behaving the way they are behaving? You know, I've always been interested in that. And I think astrology was just sort of like a natural, next step for me on that path. You know, I started engaging with astrology when I was 19 years old, because I read a book about Buddhism, and it mentioned astrology in the book in terms of like as above, so below, like in terms of energy, like what we see outside of us is also what's occurring inside of us, so that there's an outer universe and an inner universe, so to speak. And that really caught my eye. When I read that, I was like, I like this. Right. I want to know more about this. And so I started reading astrology books. I started engaging more with it. And when I got my first reading, which was sort of like a automated computer reading via mail at the time, because it was like in the early 90s, I loved it even more because there was so much in there for me to understand about myself, and that gave me such relief and such understanding about who I am, that I got obsessed at that point. I was just completely like, this is what I need to learn and know, and I never looked back since then.
Well, it's clear to me that you're in alignment with yourself and with your higher self when you're doing this, because you just light up and you're just full of energy, and people resonate a lot to your show.
It's my Zen zone.
Exactly.
I'm in my Zen zone when I do astrology.
Exactly. Barbara asked a question here. Will there be Jacera Nacera? So those are basically financial resets. There are different kinds of debt jubilees, restructuring the Federal Reserve, and all this stuff. So maybe you can't speak about those specifically, but in terms of a financial change, yeah.
I think so. I'm not sure how quickly it will happen, but yes, I believe there will be some very big shifts in that regard, because Uranus being in Taurus has also to do with our financial system, not just with the Earth. It has to do with the Earth's body, but it also has to do with our values and with how we connect to our values. And I think the financial system is, of course, a big one in this. And then also, I would say how we've been experiencing the last 3 months, I think tells us that there has to be a shift in that regard, because, how else are we going to turn things around? Because right now, the old system is not built for what we're experiencing right now. It's not built for what we're going through. So yes, it will have to happen. And, everything in life will always change so that life becomes more sustainable. It is the law of the land, so to speak, right? Like, you have to, creativity or evolution always happens in the direction of sustainability. And so if something is no longer sustainable, it have to dismantle itself, and something new will have to come in its place. So yes, I definitely think that we will experience some shifts in terms of financial systems.
What's funny too, and I had missed it up until recently. Of course, the mainstream media didn't talk about this at all. But in March, I don't know if it was March 15th or March 20th, the Federal Reserve actually put out a notice that all the banks' reserve requirement ratios could go down to 0, meaning that the banks now can lend as much as they want without having any reserve whatsoever. And of course, where's the financial media? Nobody spoke about this. And so when Sonja is saying, yeah, this year is probably going to see changes, I'm like, yeah, I think we're at the end of that Ponzi scheme. I mean, what could go wrong, right? When the bank has 0 reserves, and that's in the books right now since March. So
we'll probably see a lot more chaos around that, because obviously when something breaks down, when an old system that's been in place for a really long time breaks down, there's going to be chaos. There's going to be, people will have a hard time letting go. Because most people are creatures of habit, and when we let go of old systems, that can be painful for certain people. So it's important for us to kind of stay centered within yourself, stay calm, do what your intuition tells you to do. Don't panic.
Yeah, exactly. Don't panic. In terms of the financial system, of course, this is not financial advice. What should we do, though, if we're expecting these big changes? What can people do to protect themselves, if anything? And again, not financial advice, but what are you doing, or what do you feel is the right thing for yourself?
It's a great question. And honestly, I've been thinking about this myself as well, of course, because you do think about, how can I best stabilize my own situation, right? One thing that I've been doing a lot is I've been doing a lot of tuning in around the issue for myself. And it doesn't seem like it's the right time yet to do anything. And so I've been just staying calm about it and not let my mind take over in terms of the problem solving, because the mind really wants to problem solve all the time, doesn't it? Yeah. So it's very important to keep our mind calm and in check, because when the timing is not right for problem solving, the mind doesn't always necessarily get on board with that, right? But we have to really trust our intuitiveness and our heart in that matter. So I would say just, make sure that you're okay in terms of, that you have what you need to survive, right? I mean, that's number one, right? Because if you don't have the basics, then any little shift or any little change or any little hiccup that happens in the system is going to impact you a lot more, right? So make sure you have at least the basics, and take care of yourself in that way. But then also make sure you are diverse in how your money is, where your money is right now, right? Like don't just have all your money in one place. Like if you have all your money in the bank right now, right? Think about that. You know, think about, well, what happens if the banks go haywire? And I'm not saying take all your money out of the bank, but maybe take some of what you have there and spread it into different places, you know? Yeah. I think diversifying is really the key here right now.
So, of course, this is one of my big areas of focus, and I can do a 2-hour show on just that question. But to answer everyone here, I would say do your research. If you're not already diversified, as Sonja says, and if you're not already understanding how this transition is already taking place, it's in the progress now, you need to do the research. So maybe spend a few hours on Netflix and a little bit more hours on reading about this, because whether you want to or not, you're going to be faced with these changes and they're coming. So I encourage you guys to do your research.
And I would also add to that, be careful who you listen to.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of voices out there. You know, we have, with technology comes also a lot of people that have access to talking about things that they might not understand, right? So be careful who you listen to, like, because everybody will have their own opinion about this. And one thing that I do recommend is listen to the fear level. When a person speaks from a place of fear, turn them off. Don't listen to them any longer. There's no point, because they can't give you good information when they're scared.
Yeah.
The people you want to listen to are the people that are in their center. If a person speaks from their center, if they speak from their heart and from their center, that's a person you can listen to. That's my advice.
Very good. Thank you for the comment, Dave. Sonja's joy-filled expression shows her deep passion for astrology. Yes, I agree wholeheartedly. Sandra responded, I guess I'm a little bit delayed here because I'm trying to go up to make sure we didn't lose any questions here. But Sandra says, so it's not visible, a visible constellation. Of course, she's talking about the 13th one.
It is. It is. No, it is a visible constellation.
Okay.
You can see it in the sky.
Okay.
It is there.
Okay. Next question here. What do I have? Eclipses in China. I don't know. It's not a question. Does that ring a bell to you? Or
maybe it's visible in China. The eclipse. Okay. Is that possible? That maybe what Tommy might be saying.
Okay. Okay.
That that the solar eclipse is.
When is your birthday? I don't know. That's a private question, Sandra. I'm not sure what you're asking.
Well, I'm happy to share, but the question would be, why would you like to know?
Right.
And I don't mind sharing at all. I'm born May 16, 1973.
Oh, 73. Oh, you're just behind me. I'm 72. Interesting. Oh, I remember you telling me that when we had a reading maybe a couple of years ago. We were close in age. Okay, Green Heart. So many say the moon is a fake satellite. What are your thoughts on those? Oh yeah. So basically, there's information out there. So,
what are your thoughts with that, and those of us with moon signs? Okay, I would say whoever says the moon is a fake satellite is certainly not a woman.
Well, there's a few women who say that. So if you're not into this information here, there's people in, I guess, ufology who believe that the moon was brought here, that it's an artificial satellite, and that it's actually hollow, or that it's a transmitting station or a repeater station for the energies coming from Saturn. So I think this is where this person is coming from with that information. So here would be the question then, the follow-up to that. If that were true, how does it affect our astrology? If what we think about the moon is not real, how would it affect everything in terms of astrology?
Well, I don't really know how to answer that, because I I don't believe that the moon is a fake satellite.
No, fair enough. And you know, it's no holds barred here. Everybody can ask their questions. And
I mean,
yeah.
Absolutely. No. Any question is valid. I'm not judging the question at all. I would say this. I mean, if the moon were a fake satellite, I mean, obviously the planets that we use in astrology are an archetypal representation of a particular energy that lives within ourselves. So if the moon is a fake satellite, then there's something within ourselves that's not really truly connected, right? In terms of the moon energy, which is the moon would be the feeling body, our responses to life, our emotional conditioning. So the question is, do you believe that to that person, I would say, do you believe that within you there is a disconnect, you know, in terms of your emotions, in terms of your, you know, how you relate or how you respond to life? You know, is there a disconnect, or does it feel fake to you? Do you feel like you're pretending?
Right. I'll cue you on this bit of information, Sonja. So I forget which year it was. And again, if you believe in NASA and they've gone to the moon and all that, that's a whole other show. But at a certain point, NASA did send, I forget what type of explosion on the moon, just to basically ping it. They wanted to measure the sound waves coming back to Earth. And when they did so, and this has been released now, it's declassified information, but they said that the moon had been ringing. I don't know if it was 24 hours after that. So it sounded more metallic and hollow based on the ping information they were getting back from it. So there's some weird stuff happening with the moon. So
well, I would say the moon and the Earth have a very intimate relationship with each other, right? And they are in a interdependent relationship with each other. You know, I mean, the Earth cannot be without the moon, and the moon cannot be without the Earth.
Yeah,
I mean,
there's astronomers also who are studying the fact that the moon is too big and too close to actually be in orbit with us unless it's being manipulated somehow or propelled to be in that position. And again, it's a whole other show, guys. But thank you, Greenheart, for that question, because it sparks it sparks conversation. So, and this is what this channel is all about.
No, this is great.
It's cool.
It's the first time I've heard that, so I'm sorry that I was
no problem. So Ellie here says that our solar system is being plowed through Alcyon belt. So Alcyon, if I'm correct, that's one of the stars in Orion's belt, or am I thinking of Pleiades? Where's Alcyon?
I'm not sure, to be honest. I'm not super familiar with astronomy, because that's a little bit more, I mean, astronomy is a little bit more connected to the actual planetary, you know, things. Astrology, what I do is a little bit more about the symbolism of all of it and the interpretation of our energy fields. So I tend to stick more with the personal, with the body, than I tend to go all the way out there.
Right. Kate says, hello, Sonja. Awesome guest, JC. Thank you, Kate. Thank you for being on the show. Guys, if you have more questions, please start plugging them into the chat. I'm almost at the bottom here. I see a lot of comments, but I'm not sure where they plug into to questions for Sonja. Let me see here. I read China created an artificial moon in use now. I saw that too somewhere, either in Popular Science last year. But of course, I don't think it's as big as our moon. But yes, there was some experiment there. It could be 2 years ago now. That's interesting. There's a question here. It's off ball, but is Antarctica a parallel universe portal? So I'm not sure Sonja can address that, but if you can, we can play with that a little bit. It's very esoteric.
I guess your guess is as good as mine. I don't know.
Okay, I need to get a few guys on because there's a lot, of course, of information coming out of us, Antarctica, and there's a lot of rumors of, this goes back to the Germans going down there after World War II, actually before the end of World War II, setting up bases and then using that as a trampoline to go explore off world. So I think this is where this question is coming from. And there's a lot of grid keepers or portal keepers who also believe that on Antarctica there's I guess the equivalent of what you would see is a Stargate, so like Stargate Atlantis and stuff like that. So these are fascinating topics, but maybe not necessarily for for astrology readings. But thank you for the question. I appreciate that, Barbara.
It's great.
Will Trump end the Fed, the IRS? Again, that's going back with the financial system. Do you want to touch that a little bit, Sonja, and give your feel on that?
Again, I mean, I think. I don't know, right, is the answer, because obviously I don't know exactly how things will start to play out, because we're creating our future in every moment of now, right? And so it's something to understand with, when it comes to trying to predict stuff with astrology, you can only talk about the energies that are present. You can't really pinpoint exact things, because each one of us is part of that whole, and each one of us is creating as we go in every moment of now. And that's why it's so important to be self-responsible with how we use our energy and what we do with the thoughts that we're having, with the feelings that we're having, with the actions that we're taking, because every single thought and every single emotion and every single action adds to the future that we're currently creating. And so the question is, what future would you like to see? Right? Let alone, why talk about Trump, right? Because the future that you want to create, you can start creating right now with the thinking, the feeling, and the actions that you're taking. So what is it that you want to create?
There's a great question here. I'll come back to that one. So I'm just going to take it back off. And Tommy says, the moon is also a satellite, and then there's a second part that faces the same way on the planet. That's an also good point of the moon maybe being artificial in some way, because with astronomy now and Kepler telescopes and all that, we've monitored moons for long distances, and none of them do what our moon does, where it's always the same face facing us. So there is something weird about our moon. So thank you, Tom, for bringing that back up to the conversation. Now, so this one here, should I look into new employment opportunities to take me in a new direction? Is it time for change, or should I stay put and keep doing what I'm doing? So I'm guessing he or she is asking in reference to the eclipse season.
Yes.
Okay, so do you want to touch that a little bit?
Yes. No, this is a great question. Thanks for asking that. I mean, obviously, I would probably be able to answer the question a lot better if I would do a one-on-one reading with you. But just for a general answer here with this, I would say that right now, if there is an opportunity to move in a new direction that gets presented to you naturally and organically during eclipse season, take it, do it. If it's something that you have to push for, if you're needing to push or needing to effort, lean back, don't do it. So really with eclipse season, what we want to understand is the shifts are happening by themselves right now. So anything that you're needing to effort and push is something that you want to let go of, because that shows that you're doing something out of fear. So you want to leave fear out of the equation with eclipses, right? You just want to stay very open, neutral, and calm as best as you can, and allow an unfolding to take place. And if something new comes in, like organically, go for it. If not, wait.
It says, thank you very much for answering, and a person would love to do a one-on-one chat with you. So I've put back in the ticker tape here again.
Awesome. Yeah, feel free to go to my website where I have my services and my readings.
Perfect. And yeah, so you can click on that link, but again, folks, I'll put it in the description box of the video afterwards, so you guys can go directly to your website. But it's pretty easy, AstrologerCoach.com. All right, so let's see if we have any more cool questions here. Oh, Pablo. Pablo, he says, it doesn't matter if the moon is fake, it still has an effect on Earth. It does, right? And Pablo,
that's the truth.
Yeah, I did an interview with what's his name? Guy's name, Chris Marcus. It was an economic channel, and I started talking about energies from space and how they were affecting us. And a few of the comments were these were like really financial people. His audience were like, "Why are you talking about energies from space, dude? It doesn't make any sense. There's no proof of that." I'm like, "What do you mean there's no proof of that? I mean, if you look at lunacy, lunatic, and this document for thousands of years that the moon affects us directly."
It's everywhere.
Yeah, so of course there's evidence that celestial bodies affect us and energies from space affect us. I just thought it was a fun comment, but of course with the moon, it's so in your face.
Well, whenever there's a full moon, for example, right?
Yeah.
The emergency rooms are much more busy.
Oh yeah.
That goes up immediately, and also police activity goes up immediately.
Oh, yeah. For sure.
So I mean that shows us that the moon has definitely some influence on how things are.
My neighbor's an older cop, and he used to say, like, I don't want to work on full moon. So we give the new boots or the recruits those nights because we don't want to work them. It's full of crazies.
Yes. It's definitely more crazy during a full moon. And actually during an eclipse as well, during a solar eclipse, because a solar eclipse is a powerful new moon, which normally would indicate that the moon is not visible. But because the moon is in front of the sun, it actually makes it more prominent during the solar eclipse, which means that we definitely feel the lunar energy much stronger during a solar eclipse than during a regular new moon.
Yeah. Again, a question on the moon. We should do. I'll do a topic on this, and I'll bring.
We'll do a topic just on the moon.
Yeah, I'll bring a few guests who are versed into this whole.
Actually, I have a webinar on my website about the moon, which is called React versus Respond, our emotional maturity. And it talks about the moon in your birth chart and how you can work with that energy. And it's very powerful. And actually, I recommend it very highly for, this eclipse season right now, or this eclipse cycle, I should say, because, we have the eclipse in Cancer, which is ruled by the moon. Cancer is ruled by the moon.
Interesting. Ellie, there's a woman, I think her YouTube channel is called Cosmic Agency. Anyways, she's channeling a Pleiadian extraterrestrial, and in those conversations, the Pleiadians believe that the moon again is a repeater station for something that's coming from I believe it's Saturn, not Jupiter. It's Saturn from the rings, and that the moon is involved with an overlay of a 3D kind of matrix here on Earth, and that's where those computers or control mechanisms would be, if that's the case. So I think that's what Elodie is referring to here. But those are fascinating conversations. They're not for astrology, but it opens up the mind to the possibilities.
It opens up the imagination for sure.
Yeah. So thank you. I think that's it for questions now. M. Lansing, he says Gosia. Yeah. I'm not sure. I think it's Gosia. SIA is the name of the woman who does the those readings with the Pleiadians. So thank you, M. Lansing, for
I think I've heard of her.
Yeah. All right. Is there anything else? I guess right now in the questions, I don't see anything that I should bring up here. Oh wait, any here? Any particular stones we should set out to absorb the energies? That's a good question. Are you into crystals at all, Sonja?
I'm a little bit, yeah. I mean, I would say the one thing that I always try to put out during a full moon, also during the eclipse, is a selenite wand, because the selenite wand cleans all other stones. So if you have that out and get that recharged during the time of a full moon or an eclipse, then you can clean your other stones with the selenite wand. So I would say this is definitely a good one to put out.
Perfect. Green Heart says, yay, I will check it out. My sun and moon is both in Cancer in one other house. Okay, I appreciate your feedback. Well, thank you, Green Heart, for that. So I guess we can close on this. Sonja, it's a good place to stop here. Is there anything else that you're guided or that you forgot that you had notes on that you wanted to share for the next 6 months? Or maybe actually, yeah. Let's talk a little bit about what you see happening, because you said how these eclipses really are affecting the forecast for the next 6 months. Do we want to round that out a little bit for folks before we go?
Yeah, I mean, I could talk a little bit more about that. I would say that because the eclipse is sort of like a 6 months phase, whatever it is that we are whatever it is that we're moving with this eclipse, whatever is coming about during this eclipse, is something that will be unfolding over the next 6 months. So if there are any big events, let's say, that happen on the day right around the time of the eclipse, either a couple of days before or a couple of days after, this is something that we can look to see how it unfolds over the next 6 months. And I mean, look, the United States, I think, will definitely be impacted by this eclipse in some way, because the United States' chart is a Cancer, right? So the US is a Cancer, and then this eclipse is in Cancer. So I think we can safely say that there's some kind of correlation with this eclipse and the United States. So obviously something's unfolding over the next 6 months that requires some kind of shift, that requires some kind of rethinking our position that we have in the world, or rethinking how we want to connect with other countries, rethinking how we want to interact within the country and also globally. And I think this eclipse also has a very strong focus towards Chiron. And Chiron is sort of like, has been pretty dominant in the sky for the last 6 months with all the lunations. So my sense is that we are definitely going to be dealing with a very strong global healing process. You know, we're really needing to learn how to heal, you know, on an individual level, on a larger level, on a global level, on a level of country. We need to learn how to really be there with each other and connect to our humanity, you know, because it's all good and fine to say, you know, to each other, oh, this is how it needs to be, or this is what I want it to be, or this is how ideally we should create the world, or this is what's right, or this is what's wrong. When we're not connecting to each other from a place of humanity, from a place of, I am not perfect and you're not perfect, like we're all on this journey together and we're just doing the best we can, right? When we're not connecting on that level, we're hurting each other. When we're connecting on that level, we're actually helping each other and we're supporting each other. And that's really essential and important. And I think that this eclipse in the last 6 months has been trying to teach us that, you know, that we need to really learn how to allow ourselves to be human. You know, what does that mean to be human?
There's 2 questions here that actually make sense for us in closing, so I'm going to bring them up. I want to acknowledge here Susan. Aloha, Susan. Thank you for joining the show. So you'll see it on repeat if you just got in, but thank you for participating. M. Lansing says, are there any hints of humanity awakening? So do these alignments, these eclipses, help humanity's consciousness wake up?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes, absolutely.
And I'll bring up the second one here, just so you have it in context. I heard that in the next 6 months, we'll determine the fate for the next years based on how we go through it or how we learn. So can you touch that a little bit, Sonja, both those points?
You know, honestly, this is true all the time. How we deal with now is always what determines the future. This is true all the time. So yes, of course, right now with things being the way they are, they're being a little bit more heightened and a little bit more in our face right now in terms of like our survival as the world, you know, as a species. Yes, this is true, of course, but it's not more true than it has ever been. It's always been true. You know, it's just that we're now more aware of it more so than ever.
Right.
You know what I mean?
SB makes a good comment here about, definitely. And I think forgiveness and of self and those around us will help accelerate all this and accept all these changes that are coming.
And one key component that will really help us over the next couple of years is listen. Listen to yourself, listen to others, rather than trying to, you know, go in and need to say your whatever you need to say, your own opinion and your own, you know, whatever you need to defend, or just listen. Listen to what you can hear, in terms of from your heart space. You know, what can you hear other people say when they're angry? What are they actually saying to you? Rather than listening to the words, also listen to what's behind the words. What are these people hurting about? When people are angry, they're in pain. There's something else going on. Anger is not just there for the fun of it. Yeah. Anger is there because people have something that they're upset about. They're in pain. Yeah. So what's behind the anger? How can we listen in a different way?
Yeah. Thank you, Tony, for posting that up. He says that the complete path of the solar eclipse is South Sudan, India, China, Taiwan, and Guam. Yeah. So yeah, I don't think we're going to see the total eclipse here, but we might see it partially, or maybe not at all, actually, if you look at that path. But thank you, Tommy, for bringing that up. So Pablo's wrote this 2-3 times, so I brought it up. But he says the moon is supposed to be a disguise or disguising an alien spaceship that's in the back. Maybe. We'd love to get up there and take a look. But thank you, Pablo, for that comment. That's great. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for being on the show. Really appreciate all these questions and the comments. It was a fun interaction. And thank you so much to Sonja for taking the time to come with us.
You're so welcome.
Yeah, that was great. And if you guys like the show, please hit the like button. I really appreciate it. Please hit the subscribe button and hit the notification bell so that you know the next time we go live. And thank you to all the new Patreon members. Really appreciate that. Your support means everything to me. So that's great. And if you want to book a session with Sonja, and I recommend you do, so that she can tell you exactly for you and your astrology what the next, a couple of months are going to be look like for you, please go check her out at AstrologerCoach.com. So,
and I would also like to say one more thing.
Go ahead.
I have a special offer until June 30th for anyone who wants to check out, be more in contact with me on a more daily or weekly basis. So email me at info@astrologercoach.com if you want to hear about that special offer.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Sonja. I appreciate that. That's great, everyone. So have a beautiful day, guys. The sun is out, and go within, do your meditations, and we'll see you soon. Au revoir.
Much love.